Okay, so over the last few weeks, we've been talking about finances, and I know that makes people uncomfortable, but I think it's important that we try to figure that out together, that we try to figure out how we live financially in peace. And I know some of you probably think that it's because I want you to start giving more, and that is not, it's not about that at all. I am not up here to get something from you. I am trying to help you look at your finances in a biblical way and try to figure out how do we live within our means? How do we live on less than we make so that later in life we can be at peace? The first week we talked about what does it look like to make a budget? Why is that important? And I told you that you had to be honest with what you spend your money on. And I challenge you to write down everything, check it, double check it, and then put that budget in place so that you're not spending tons of extra money. And then last week we talked about what does it look like when we decide that we are no longer going to live in debt? That we may have a lot of debt right now, but biblically, how do we move past that debt and start to pay it down? And I introduced the snowball effect, where you take the biggest amount, the smallest amount, you pay that off, and you just keep working towards it till you get all that debt paid off. So eventually, you can live free then. This week is all about living on less than you make. It's all about looking at what you make and figuring out a way to live on less than that. In Luke 16, Jesus tells us about a guy that was wasting his master's money. He got called into the principal's office, or just the office, and the master said, "You are not living how you're supposed to, and you're wasting my money." And he had to face the truth that he needed to make better choices. We have to realize that Jesus does the same for us when he's thinking about our finances. See, Jesus doesn't care about your past. What he is all about is that moment that you can change and start to focus on the new, the change. I want you to hear this scripture. Jesus told his disciples, there was a rich man whose manager was accused of wasting his possessions. So he called him in and asked him, "What is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management, because you cannot be a manager any longer." The manager said to himself, "What shall I do now? My master is taking away my job. I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. I know what I'll do so that when I lose my job here, people will welcome me into their houses." So he called in each one of the master's debtors. He asked the first, "How much do you owe my master?" 900 gallons of olive oil, he replied. The manager told him, "Take your bill, sit down quickly, and make it 450." Then he asked the second, "How much do you owe?" 1,000 bushels of wheat, he replied. He told him, "Take your bill and make it 800." The master commanded the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. For the people of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than they are the people of the light. I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourself, so that when it's gone, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. So if you have not been trustworthy in handling world wealth, who will trust you with the true riches? And if you have not been trustworthy with someone else's property, who will give you property of your own? No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. So if you keep spending everything you make, you will never move forward. It makes me think about this guy that I once was friends with. He would complain to me often that he had no money, but I knew where he worked and I knew how much money he made, and it was a lot. And I started to think about him telling me about him not making any money. And then I started watching, and I realized he's always got a nice pair of shoes on. I realized that he was door dashing often to get his food. I realized that he had to have the newest phone as soon as it came out. I noticed that maybe he didn't have an income problem, but he had a spending problem. He was spending money as if it was coming out of a fire hose. At the end of every month, he was so confused on where all of his money went because he wasn't paying attention to what he was doing. See, he did not have an income problem. He had a spending problem. He thought the more money that he made, then that would fix the issues that he had. That's exactly what Jesus is talking about with this guy. You can have plenty coming in. You can have lots and lots of money. But if you waste it, then that is where you are left out and you don't have peace. See, he didn't have an income problem. He has a spending problem. I need you to hear that. He wasn't paying attention to where his money was going. Now, on the same hand, I have had other friends that have made way less than this guy. And what do? They track where every dollar goes. They make their food at home. They wait and maybe buy the second newest iPhone when it comes out. They have money at the end of the month because they have been paying attention to where the money goes. That's exactly what Jesus was talking about in Luke 16. You have to pay attention to where your money's at. See, these people that I was friends with, they packed their lunch. They got rid of the extra monthly subscriptions that they had. They tithed and they saved. And over time, they built up this savings so that when something crazy happens, like you blow out a tire, they have the peace to know that they had this extra money. See, it's the same world for both of these people. Yet, two very different outcomes. The first was like the manager, wasting money and hoping that it would all work out. And the second was like that manager after he woke up and started to change his direction. See, living on less than you make is not about not having fun. Because you can still have fun with the money that you make. And immediately when I start to say that you need to live underneath what you make, everyone in here is like, he doesn't want me to have fun anymore. And that is not it at all. I want you to have fun, but I also want you to pay attention to where you're spending that money. I want you to think ahead. I want you to tell your money how to work instead of it telling you where it goes. Jesus said the manager finally used his head. That's the shift that we need to look at. We need to use our heads. We need to make changes. We need to build a life that moves forward instead of being stuck in that same broke cycle over and over and over again. So this morning I have a few points to make this clearer for us. The first point is we need to pay attention to where our money is going. The manager in Luke 16 wasn't evil. He was careless. He was spending his money carelessly. He wasn't worried about where his master's money was going. He was just spending it all willy-nilly. He drifted. His problem started long before him being called to his master. He wasn't paying attention. That was the issue. And once he faced the truth, he had to make the change. That's where we start today. We have to face the issue, and then we have to make that change. Most people don't know where their money goes, and most of us act shocked when the account balance is low. But deep down, we know exactly where that money went. You cannot change what you ignore. You cannot change what you ignore. You can't fix what you refuse to look at. So instead of checking our bank accounts at the end of the month, we just choose not to look at it. We choose not to see every time that we've swiped our card. Watching your money sounds simple, but many of us skip it because it stings. I know some of you in here, you know that moment when you open the banking app on your phone and you look at that number and you're like, holy moly, someone must have stole my debit card. There's no money in here. And I've had that moment until I start scrolling through and realize, ooh, there's McDonald's, there's Amazon, there's another Amazon. Oh no, there's the vet. And then you realize that you have spent all this money on things that you didn't really realize that you're spending it on. That late night Amazon order after you've had way too much wine, or that Tuesday, I'm just going to stop and grab a cheeseburger before I go home. And then you convince yourself, these shoes are on sale, so I'm going to get them. If you don't pay attention to where your money is going, then you are going to be behind. You can't make a change if you ignore it. You can make all the money in the world, but if you continue to live like that, you're still going to be broke. Many of us fall into the coffee trap. Do you know what the coffee trap is? Coffee costs $5 once a day. All right? Not a big deal one time. But it's when we decide that we want a coffee every single day, that comes out to be what, $150 a week? $1,800 for the month. The coffee trap is, hey, I deserve this coffee until you make it into a routine, and now you're spending a whole bunch of money on coffee that you could have got at your house for way cheaper. It's about slow habits forming that drain you of your peace. Now, you have that trap. You also have this next trap. It was on sell trap, right? See, this sell tactic is hey, I'll mark down this item just enough to make people think that they're getting a good deal. And then people go in and say, oh, that is marked down. This is the deal of a lifetime. I got to get it. You don't need to get that stand mixer. That's $20 off, right? You don't need it, but you fell for the trap. You fell for the trap, and you say, oh, it's just a little bit. And maybe it is just a little bit one time. But when we start to fall in that trap, we keep doing it over and over and over. See, one purchase doesn't wreck you, but when you form this pattern of this idea that these are deals, that's when you start to lose stability. My wife and I used to swear that we had no extra money, none, until we started looking at our bank account. We would say that we would love to save more or we would love to give more, but in all reality, it wasn't because we weren't making enough money, it was because we were spending it. And to be honest with you, we are making way less than we have ever made, yet we are living so comfortable. Because we realized that we have to live under what we make. We track. We make sure that we aren't buying all this extra stuff. Right, Tiff? This is more me than her. I'm the spender. So we tracked and we were a little embarrassed because we at times have looked and saw that we ate out 4 times this week. 4 times. Think of how much money we could have saved. We have looked at our bank account and we have seen that late night scrolling on Amazon that can cause havoc. So we had to make some hard decisions and we had to cut some stuff out. See, our problem wasn't that we weren't making enough money, it was that we were spending too much. We were spending too much. So, what are some practical steps to make sure that you aren't spending too much? This week, track everything that you spend. Every swipe, every bill, every coffee, every deal of the lifetime. You can write it down. You can use an app. Just do it. You'll learn more in 7 days of tracking than you would ever learn in 7 years of guessing. Look for patterns that drain your money. Is there a day a week that you always stop and get food? Are there impulse buys that you do? Are there kids' activities that you are continually just shelling money out to? Are you scrolling late night on Amazon? Here's a big one. Holidays are coming. Got to get some decorations. Are you going to Hobby Lobby and spending all your money? See, once we figure out where we are spending our money, then we can actually deal with it. You have to be honest with what you see. You don't excuse it. You don't blame it on someone else. You don't blame it on your income because you're making enough, I promise you. You just have to face the truth, just like the manager did. And hopefully that truth then will change you. It's all about being aware. You have to build awareness. You can't build a strong financial life if your eyes are closed. Point 2, we have to stop wasting our money on stuff that doesn't matter. We have to. The manager in Luke 16 didn't wait for motivation to hit. He didn't hope the problem would fix itself. He acted and he adjusted. That's what we have to do. We have to stop wasting money on things that don't matter and start making intentional choices. We have to live on less than what we make. And immediately you probably are thinking like, he's trying to deprive me of my stuff. Well, it's not about being deprived, it's about being in line. It's about spending money on what really matters instead of what feels good in the moment. See, wealthy people aren't smarter than us. They just don't make dumb decisions with their money, right? They just don't make dumb decisions with their money. They choose to put their resources towards things that actually build a future. I go back to 2 people, both making $50,000 a year. One spends it on crazy stuff and the other one saves. Again, same situation, same world. One's living paycheck to paycheck. The other one has peace. Why is that? Because of the decisions that they make. One buys stupid stuff, another one chooses to save. So you are asking, where in the Bible can I find this? Well, I think of Joseph. Joseph decided that he was going to save some of his resources back during the good times because he knew bad times were coming. And so that's exactly what he did. Then bad times came and he was prepared. That's a perfect example of what it looks to cut waste and plan ahead. See, it wasn't easy for Joseph, and it's not going to be easy for us, but he built a solid future. He planned for the future, and we have to do the same. This part is all about action. Awareness alone isn't enough. You have to do something with what you see. Cutting waste is just one small act, but it creates space for every brick to follow. And the third and final point is you have to build the direction with your money. Again, the manager realized the truth about his situation. He didn't ignore it. He didn't hope for it to fix itself. He got intentional. He made a plan. That's exactly what God is calling us to do, to make a plan. Most people treat money like it's a magical thing that stretches to cover over bills and grocery and gas and unexpected emergencies, and they just hope it works out. You know what that's like? That's like when you start to build a house with some bricks, and you grab the bricks and you throw them up, and you hope magically that they fall in the right places. That's the same for money. Same for money for a lot of us. We take our money, we hold it in our hands, and we have all this stuff that we need to put the money towards, and we throw it up. And we hope magically it falls in the right areas. And we know that that doesn't work. That's not how things work. But when we start to plan, when we start to have this hope, when we start building a financial stability in our lives, it goes beyond that. If we start to know exactly where our dollar goes, and we start to track where that money is going, then we don't have to toss up the money and hope that it covers it all, because we already know that we have enough to cover it. You have to plan your future. Without direction, it slips through your fingers, causing stress, frustration. Without a plan, you don't have a tool to help you. Without a plan, you worry way too much. This is where, like, the practical stuff comes into play. What can you do this week to help you plan for the future? Well, one way is called the envelope system, and many of you know this if you have been around Dave Ramsey or have heard any of his stuff. So what happens is you take your check and you cash it, which is crazy because who cashes their check and takes money out of the bank? We just leave it in the bank, right? But if we really want to get like on board with tracking our money, then we have to do this. Take the money out, and then you have envelopes. Envelopes that say different things. Rent. So you take the money that you have for the rent for the month, put it in here. You have one for gas. You have to go somewhere. You put your money in here for gas. Food, same thing. Fun. Remember I said you can still have fun, but you have to plan for it. And then God. And then, you have an envelope for savings, and you have an envelope for all the essential needs, right? And so you have all your money, your whole paycheck for the month in these envelopes. And you take the money out and use it when you need to. If you're going to the grocery store, you take that money out and you pay for your groceries out of the food envelope. You're going to McDonald's, you take that money out of the food and you give it to the McDonald's person. And you realize real quick that the more that you go to McDonald's, you have less money. Now, at the end of the month or the middle of the month or whenever, when you run out of money in your envelope, you're done. You don't go get more money, you're done. So when you run out of money for gas, you're not going anywhere else. When you run out of money for food, well, I guess it's going to be lean for a little bit. This is a practical way that you can start keeping track of your money. When you have cash on hand and you start to see it go down slowly and slower, and to the point where you realize, man, I've only got $4 or $5 left in here, you're going to start thinking to yourself, I'm not going to spend this money. Immediately, that starts to do something to your soul. It changes who you are because you actually see it leaving. It's not just swiping a card and seeing money go out. It's actually seeing cash disappear. See, it forces you to be clear on what you're spending on. You know exactly how much money you have, and know exactly how much money you can spend. It builds accountability between you and the person or you and God because you know that you have to set a limit somewhere. And you have to stick to it. It gives you control. You look at the money and you realize, man, I only have $40 left for food for the rest of the month. I better not go to McDonald's anymore. And it shapes your priorities. It says, I only have this much money for the month. I better make sure that I do the things that I need to be doing. See, the key takeaway here is financial stability doesn't come from hoping money will last. It comes from planning. It comes from prioritizing. It comes from giving every dollar a job. See, when you are distracted, that is when the evil one can come in and take away your peace in the form of that sell that you needed to do. But when you are on point and you are doing the things that God has called you to do, when you have your priorities lined up, that is a tool that can build a life that God wants you to have. So as we wrap up today, it really comes down to trust. It really does. Are you trusting your money that God has given you? Are you trusting that there will be enough at the end of the month? Are you working towards living on less? Are you building a budget? Are you paying off that debt? So you can track your spending, you can cut waste, you can do this envelope system, you can do all those things, but if you don't realize that the money has come from God and you don't trust that there will never be enough, then this stuff will all fail. It won't work out. We have to trust that God has given us the things that we need. See, peace doesn't start in your bank account. Peace starts in trusting God. Some of you have heard this message this morning and you're just a big ball of anxiety. And you don't know what to do next. And some of you are saying, what if I don't have enough? Or some of you are saying, what if I fail? Or some of you say, what if I can't stick to this plan? Or what if that Hobby Lobby trip just kills me? Those things will keep you up at night. They will steal your peace. They will sit on your chest and take away your breath. You continue to worry about what your future holds. You forget that your future is already planned by God. He is there. This morning I have picked another song for us to hear, and it's all about trusting God and about putting our trust in Him. Because sometimes there is this weight that sits on our chest because we don't trust Him. But hopefully you can hear that over time, when you start to trust in God, He will release that weight off your chest. So this morning I wanted you to see this video.